Terror on the Tube.
Well, whoops, a little early on that one. Hello and welcome to Terror on the Tube, where we watch and discuss horror and suspense made for TV movies from the 70s, 80s, and now twice the 1990s. I am Gilman Joel, and my co-hosts are, of course, Pumpkinhead Peter.
Hello, still here.
At the moment.
At the moment.
And the horror unicorn, aka Allyson.
Hello.
And we are joined for this super duper special Terror on the Tube. This, shall I say, spooky flicks fest of us,
Yes.
for the rest of us, episode of Terror on the Tube. We are joined by the one, the only, Huw from the Undead Wiki. Hello, Huw.
Shwai. How we doing?
I think we're doing great now that we're all here together. It's been so long since we've recorded an episode or a bonus or anything.
Too long.
Actually, I believe, I don't know in how these are fall. This episode's going to launch the day before Halloween.
30th.
Right, Peter? So happy Halloween Eve, everyone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes. And the bonus episode that Huw was in for Spooky Flicks Fest was probably the previous week, I'm going to guess.
The 26th, I think.
Sure, we'll go with that. So yeah, last week. So be sure to check that out. And of course, it goes without saying, if you're listening to the audio only version of this, go over to Mom and Pop Video Shop on YouTube and check out the video recording of this episode. So we are I'm bumping my table here. We are talking about.
Very animated.
I am, aren't I? I'm pumped for this one, Peter. I got some smack to talk.
Oh, wow.
I'm kidding, maybe. We are covering Ghostwatch from 1992. Are we not, Peter?
Hello. Yeah.
And Peter, do you have a synopsis by
Oh, see,
chance?
here,
Pray tell.
this one here, which is called the stone tape,
Yes.
it'll pop up later.
Okay. Good.
Oh, that's
It's
on our list.
Hey, and Huw, I remember all of our back and forth last year talking about hauntology and everything.
Yeah.
The stone tape
Absolutely.
part of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the stone tape quite a bit.
I love the
actually.
stone tape. It's just wonderful. I have the same DVD, the same one.
We're not talking about that now, because we're talking Ghostwatch.
Moving along.
Okay, let's see. This aired on BBC One, Saturday, October 31st, 1992, Halloween night, the one only night it's ever been aired. And a quick summary is, the BBC gives over a whole evening to an investigation into the supernatural. Four respected presenters, respected presenters and a camera crew attempt to discover the truth behind the most haunted house in Britain, expecting a lighthearted scare or two and probably the uncovering of a hoax. They think they're in control of the situation. They think they're safe. The viewers settle down and decide to watch for a laugh. 90 minutes later, the BBC and the country was changed, and the consequences are still felt today.
Da, da, da. All right. So Huw,
Yes.
being, I believe, a resident of the old UK,
Indeed, you do.
do you recall when this originally aired?
I watched it live.
Whoa, how old were
Nice.
you?
I was 12.
Oh, ouch.
I was 12.
Did you know?
Explains
Did you know going in that it wasn't real?
Nobody knew. Nobody knew at all.
Well, again, this kind of goes back to that the radio broadcast with
War of the Worlds.
War of the
Yeah.
Worlds.
Mhm,
Because
very
they
much
say in the
so.
beginning there is a disclaimer written by and all that, but people kind of tend to come in a little bit later in TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nobody had any clue. And obviously, this is pre-internet. And of course, it's got, and it says about the sort of, it's got Michael Parkinson in it.
Yeah.
Now, Parky, as he'd be referred to in the UK, was one of the most well-respected first journalists, and then one of the probably, and I think, my humble opinion, one of the greatest talk show hosts of all time.
Yep.
And his show ran from the 70s right up until,
So let me find a U.S. equivalent because I'm obviously very geocentric like all Americans. So would this be like do you know who Phil Donahue was?
yeah,
No,
he's
that's not a good
far more
comparison.
I
respected.
think I think Phil Donahue because he was a talk show host, but he wasn't like a sleazy one, right? He wasn't like one of these like like Jerry Springer or something. He was like a more serious.
So like I think the closest thing you probably have to Parkinson. Who was the guy? Oh God, what's his name? Wore the braces, glasses. What's his name?
Braces and glasses.
I have
nothing.
Ghostbusters. American Journal. What was his name?
Popped up in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, he's in the media segment. When they talk about what was it? Larry King? Larry King.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Kind of in that same ilk, but obviously Parkinson, Michael Parkinson or Sir Michael Parkinson, he's a Yorkshireman, so he's from the north. He's very, very stoic. Just sort of brings this air of credibility to it. And then you've got and then you got Sarah Greene with who at the time was on a children's TV show called Going Live, which was a live production first thing on a Saturday morning. And then you got Mike Smith, who was her husband. And of course you get Lister from Red Dwarf pops up. And
I reckon that's the only person in this that I recognized was Craig Charles, right? Isn't that the actor?
Yeah. And
Lister.
Red Dwarf was really big at the time. So
well, he was in 924 episodes of Coronation Street.
He was, yeah, that came a bit, and now he sort of does. He's got a really amazing radio show that plays just all amazing funk and soul and those kind of things. But nobody at any point twigged that this was not this was anything but real. And I remember sitting there with my grandmother and my uncle, and it was a Saturday night, and we were all, we were sat around watching it. And obviously, there are moments in this that are just terrifying for the time. Nobody'd seen any of this, so we're all sat there, and this is playing out. And we were, oh no, it can't be real. No, not at all. No, and then we get to the end. And it all starts going about, and obviously I'm absolutely traumatized by the time we get to the end of this. And then the house goes silent. And then my grandmother, God bless her, as my grandmother's name is Morfedd. Okay, so it's very, very, very Welsh, very, very Welsh. So her accent gets to, we'll get to the point. When I get excited, people can't understand what I'm saying. But there are sometimes there'll be certain phrases. So we sat there, we're in silence because we've been terrified for this. So it's all gone bang in the studio and everything else. Everybody's realised that she's just sat there and she's gone, well, that was a bloody waste of time, and gets up and leaves the room.
So, not believe it?
Oh, she sort of thought, she was in the program and then clicked and then just, well, that was a bloody waste of time, and just gets up and leaves. I'm sat there like, what?
Left alone.
Is Parky okay? Is he going back? What happened to Lister?
Oh my God.
So it was an event, to say the least. And then the next day, the newspaper, the papers, all across all channels, because of course this came out on the BBC, and the BBC still has very, very strict. It's still very, it prides itself on its sort of integrity and those kind of things. And this just blew people's minds. Just absolutely blew people. I think there was something like 30,000 complaints made.
Yeah, I read something about that.
And obviously we got Ofcom in the UK, and people think about like number of like complaints. If people get like 90 complaints or 10 complaints or something like that, people are like, oh, twist the envelope. But this had 30,000 complaints.
Wow.
And it's actually ended up in the British, one of the medical journals, psychology journals, talking about PTSD. So this kind of answers a lot of questions right here, really.
Wow, that is tremendous. That is tremendous.
And
And
they even got there's a kid who committed suicide, and they blamed.
What?
They blamed this show.
I mean,
for it.
the UK has this incredible ability that anytime there is some like massive tragic event, or we instantly start looking to blame like television, film,
sure,
knee-jerk instantly. And this was put out and very, very much became the sort of whipping boy, and it was only ever aired once. It's never been aired since. It's never been put on again. Very similar to War Games, the mockumentary about the nuclear attack, and Threads, which is the other one about a nuclear attack, about a nuclear detonation over Sheffield, which still terrifies me to this day.
Yeah.
But they've never been shown again. So there is this history of these things that are being put out there, and the shock for people, and they never get seen again. And this is one, and this is the other one. It's never been aired ever since.
But in a way, wouldn't you agree that helps contribute to the mystique, right?
Oh,
the fact that
Yep.
the fact that they never air it again. It's
yeah.
So I watched this for the first time. Allyson, had you seen this before?
Many times.
Okay. I knew of it. I think recently, Peter, was it when we were recording with Hammond? He mentioned Doug from who did the Found Footage Films podcast. And I think looking back, that may have also been around the first time I ever heard of it too. This has been like 2016-ish, 15, somewhere in there maybe. So I didn't know anything about it. I knew enough going into it that I knew a little bit of the backstory. I knew it was, this kind of shockumentary, not real, but it affected people. That I knew, but I intentionally didn't watch any clips or anything like that. My kids, I showed it to them when we watched it. And in hindsight, I wish I had played this off better. I should have recorded it onto a VHS tape with nothing other than like a handwritten label, mailed it to myself from Peter, and
with a note that said, "Watch this."
Yeah, watch this. You're not going to believe this. And then build. Because I think the problem was when I came up with this in hand, they immediately knew. Okay, they're like, Dad, if this was real, we would have never. Basically, the message for my children was, we would have never heard the end of you going on and on about this, and you would have been talking about this all the time. Like, there's no way.
You should have copied it. You should have copied it over to another disc and just said Ghostwatch, and then had a blank cover.
Yes. I should. In hindsight, I should have done that. But point is that even with that, there was a point about maybe the halfway mark where one of them looked at me and goes, "This is fake, right?" I was like,
yes.
Oh. So,
but it's done so well, because you get to the point where Parkinson is it's almost condescending to them. I thought, it's the way, and that's Parkinson. Like he is so good at playing that. He is so stone-faced in this one, basically.
Stoic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, sure, no, this must be a hoax. And then when the daughter is banging on the potato, it's like he's like, oh, yeah, see, this is tragic. Yep. So it's they try to be very factual, but it's very condescending at the start. And then things start.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, one of my favorite / most annoying parts is I do love the one American that they get into it is, of course, got to be the douchebaggy know-it-all, expert who's like, well, rah, rah, rah. You know what I mean?
Dr.
He's so
Emilio Silvestri.
Yeah, he's so condescending to the doctor that's in the studio, and it's just like, okay, Captain Open Mind. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Yeah, but she's almost like the opposite of it. She is almost condescending to skeptics, because she's and she's kind of annoying in that way.
I guess, but I think I would give her the pass in that, she's had nothing but this unrelenting barrage of insults, and no one takes her serious. So I get why she might have a chip on her shoulder. That guy's just I know it's a clean podcast, but I'll call him a weenie. He's a big old weenie.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing that I love about the legacy of Ghostwatch is that from Ghostwatch now I've always loved, and I still do. I'm an absolute sucker for a good ghost investigation program.
Mm-hmm.
Just the sheer lunacy of some of it. I absolutely it is my junk food. I love it. And from here later on down the line we get Most Haunted. And Most Haunted essentially is Ghostwatch, but played for real. And then from Most Haunted, you get Ghost Adventures, and then you get Help Me, My House is Haunted, and you get all of these kind of, and it all stems from this program, And we have this sort of like
name?
Yvette Fielding.
There you go.
Most Haunted, and. They bring on the psychic, Derek Ackroyd, who is about as psychic as my flip flops. I mean, he's there, sort of like edging his bets throughout. He's going, I'm getting a name that begins with the
A through Z. It begins with A through Z.
Yeah,
and I'm getting A B O B B B.
But you know what, Hugh?
Yeah,
we still watched it.
Oh my God, do we? And I love it. I absolutely love it. My wife comes in and just, there are, she is, every now and again, one will draw in, but there are times she just shakes her head and leaves the room. But it's from this program that we get all this. And, it was an influence on, the directors of the Blair Witch Project talked about how this influenced them. And there's a great tradition in Britain with programs like these mockumentaries. So, like we said, more about war games, and the other great one that they did, which wasn't a mockumentary, but was Dead Set, which was set in the Big Brother house, which is about a zombie outbreak during the filming of Big Brother. And they used all the cast, and they used the crew, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. And they used former housemates that they brought back, and Davina McCall, who was the host in a similar way. So it's really there is the legacy of this is fantastic. It stretches right out.
Yeah, that's cool. So Allyson, so you said you've seen this many times.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where I first heard about this, but then it had to have been it was well over a decade ago, and I remember I might have been watching some video of like, I don't know, scariest moments from television in the UK or something like that, because I was going down like a BBC spooky documentary rabbit hole at one point, and so I had to find it, and for a while it was on YouTube for like a brief glimmering moment, and we were able to watch it. And my husband and I, Drew, we're like, oh, this is really interesting. This is fun. And then it starts to get progressively creepier because it's so subtle at first.
Very subtle.
But it's disturbing. And I remember thinking when we went to bed that night, I was looking at the curtains in our bedroom, and I was like, I'm having some regrets about watching before bed.
It sneaks up on you.
Yeah, it's really subtly creepy, and it's really well done. And so over the years, whenever I've been able to just watch it, I want to say it was on Shudder or some streaming service like a couple years ago.
Yes, you're right. It was.
We actually, back in like Haunted Davenport days, early in that podcast, it was one of the first things we covered, and that was something I really wanted to cover. It was kind of like that, and wanting to talk about Night Gallery were the two reasons why I started that podcast. And that actually, it was fun. We gathered everybody here, and it was available streaming for like this brief shining moment, and we had a group watch, and it was a lot of fun. And every time I watch it, and this most recent watch had been a few years, is still effective. Like it's just, we were sitting here last night on the couch, and Drew was like, I'm getting unsettled all over again. Like we've seen this so many times.
Yeah. And I think,
go ahead, Joe.
No, you go ahead.
So, what makes it worse is what I did yesterday when I watched it again. No, not yesterday, the day before. Sitting in the dark, having headphones So you can hear all the whispers and all the sounds, and I
Ugh.
deeply regretted that afterwards.
Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. I will say too. So again, being the newbie here, being the newbie normie that I'd only heard of it, never saw it. What jumped out at me was okay. So interesting side note: we only got to watch the first hour because it's what 90 minutes, right? It was about 90 minutes.
Yeah,
So
about an hour and 30.
Yeah, so
about that, yeah.
we had to pause it because we had something we had to go do, and I made the mistake of
no.
starting it and not building in enough of a buffer. But so we still had like 20 minutes left. So we really only got at the beginning because it's such a slow build. But here's the thing. I feel like first off, this is not found footage. This is more of a mockumentary, although we'll call it a shockumentary because it's not funny. So it's a shockumentary. It is obviously inspired found footage type stuff, but it's not a found footage movie. Although you could always make the argument at the very, very end has a found footagey sort of vibe, the way things go out. But I think what struck me was that the thing they did exceptionally well, that I think is the only way you could pull something like this off, is to do it. It almost, I don't want to say it's boring. It's not boring because all the people in it are engaging and it's an interesting topic. So, but it's got to be this slow build. You can't have the big cinematic jump scare. You can't have that.
Nope.
You can't have the part where you show too much. You got to have a lot of it's very it's about suggestion. It's about just planting certain ideas in the audience's mind. The real genius of this thing, in my opinion, is this had to really jack you up, Huw, and people in the UK, that the implication was anyone watching this was having some kind of infestation enter their house as they're watching it spreading like a disease. That is genius. Because now you just made everybody get pulled even more. Because you know every stupid noise you hear in your house, you're like, what?
Yeah.
I did, because I was sitting with my headphones and all of a sudden I heard tapping.
No.
I was like, what the hell is this? So I kind of and it was raining out. So I heard that was on the windowsill. But I was like, wait a minute. I said, was this for real? So yeah,
it worked.
You know how they shot the house stuff and all that around the house. They shot that first, and then they showed it, and then Michael Parkinson and
reacted to it.
They so what's playing on the TV screens, that's for real. They're playing that footage on that just so it makes it again like it seems real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So no, that's slow burn. I wish you hadn't had to cut it off.
Well, here's the thing, though. I will tell you this. Even having done that, because I said to my kids, I said, I have a feeling stuff's about to get real. Like I feel like we're building. I mean, because it was just when I think when the older daughter had her moment where it was long after she'd done they accused her of the hoax and all that. And she started having the scratches again on her face, and I think it was right around that time, and you could tell it was taking a turn. And so here's the thing. So even having to break it up, it still works exceptionally well.
Okay.
We just went back and it was later that day. We sat down and we watched the last 20 minutes or whatever, and it was deeply disturbing. Because here's the thing about this: it's not just that it goes off the rails at the end, because it does, but again, it rides the line. It's such a fine line to not overplay your hand, have it be so crazy. I mean, the crazy stuff happens, but it happens in a way that feels grounded. So you constantly, I can't imagine seeing this live and not knowing, because especially like you said, pre-internet, you're like, the whole time you would be questioning no matter what.
Because you kind of need to wait to see when Michael Parkinson will show up again.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, this is the other thing as well. People were, they were genuine concerns about everything that was going on. Yeah. And even though, people were able to work it out quite quickly that, this wasn't, but there was still that moment at the end where Parkinson is wandering around the studio.
And it just ends.
And he's muttering.
Yeah.
And this is proper nightmare fuel stuff. This is this is a British institution. This stoic human suddenly wandering around potentially possessed by
And the fact that he would go along with it, right? That's everyone's like, he would never do this. He would never go along with this.
Yeah, but and I mean it is, and the fact that the backstory as well behind, the ghost. And they talk about Mother Seddons, who was a Victorian baby farmer who murders children, and the Pipes was, it talks that maybe he's a child killer and he's a child molester, and there's all of this stuff.
And
that's what. And I realized after it was over, I said to my kids, like, wait a minute. The description behind the curtain that they said they couldn't tell whether there was a man or a woman, that they was in a gown, and the face was a skull, and the eyes seemed to be missing. It's like, oh my God. Like they never explicitly say, but it's like, that is so, go ahead, Allyson. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that throughout the film, including very early on, he keeps showing up. The ghost
subliminal,
subtly in the background. So one of the things that's fun about a rewatch is trying, you're showing the picture of him. It's so creepy. Yeah. So like, you're watching on a rewatch, and I remember at one point watching some making of thing on YouTube and them saying, these are all the places where they inserted this image. And I was like, oh, I missed several of those.
I think
it's so quick.
I think they say 13.
Really? I was on like twice or 3 times.
So you go back and you start really scanning the background of every scene, which is basically what makes modern found footage so terrifying, is when you're expecting something. Like I feel like when the Paranormal Activity movies came out and everybody was so excited about that, I feel like the thing that I always hear people say is, well, I'm scanning the screen and I'm bracing for when the camera moves or when things expand or something shows up. And Ghostwatch gives you that sensation, especially on rewatch. I'm thinking, okay, I know Pipes is going to show up here. And there were places, even just this most recent time, where I noticed him in places I hadn't before. And that makes
he's in the studio. He's in the studio, actually.
Yes, he is.
God. What makes that worse is, so therefore every rewatch, it is almost like this is a possessed film. And that Pipes is moving throughout it.
And the other great thing about, particularly now when you go back and you watch it again, this is, the fact that it's shot pretty much in that, it's got that sort of very, very 90s sheen to it.
Yeah.
So it's got this almost analog horror feel to it as well.
Yeah. Yes.
And the fact that, there is subliminal imagery in it. The fact that, I'd completely forgotten about the line where Susie, isn't it? It's Susie, where she says, "What big eyes you have," and big hair. I just, oh my God, all that childhood trauma is now going
back,
dancing its way through.
Wow. I'm just gonna say it was tremendous. I can't wait to watch it again, and without interruption, preferably. And I know I don't have the super duper special edition, but the one I have has a 50-something minute document, like a 30th anniversary documentary. So, and also commentary. So I want to definitely get both of those in as well. But it was, man, it was just, I almost like I can't think of anything negative, because I will say this too. There's a found footage film that I absolutely loved. Have you seen the McPherson tapes?
Yes.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
No,
okay.
I know of it.
Okay, so that's for Allyson and Peter. That's the UFO one.
Yeah. Okay.
Where it's like a birthday party in like 1989 or something, and it's all, in my opinion, it's almost perfect. It's almost perfect because it does something like Ghostwatch, where everything is subtle and it's not ever. They tried very carefully to never frame things too perfect, because it's just some guy filming a birthday party. It wouldn't look good, right? So it perfectly keeps with the aesthetic it needs. That where it screws up, in my opinion, is like in the last 10 seconds. And I won't say why, but you see something that I feel like completely ruins it. Whereas this one, the genius is it just cuts. It doesn't give us anything. It's not like Pipes come skittering towards the camera. None of that crap. It just ends. And that's how, and if you think about it, if this really did happen to you in any way, shape, or form, that's what it would be like. It wouldn't be like a movie. It would be subtle, and it would be it would just be, it would be chaotic. It wouldn't be perfectly framed and everything makes sense, and it would be chaotic. Exactly.
Yeah. And what I also like is when they're filming in the house, you get that sense of, because you have a cameraman and sound man, and they're all running around, and there are cables everywhere. Everything is kind of crowded and cramped, and you get the sense of it's not a big house, but it gets even smaller because you have all the crew there, and it feels cramped, and still there's something there that you can't see. Well, we do see him once in a while, but no, I like that sense of reality, because you could have easily made it like, no, you don't see all the cables, you just see the cameraman running, but you get the sense of this being.
There's a wonderful moment of that right at the beginning where Sarah Greene is sort of introducing the camera, and she's saying, this is what we're going to be doing, and she takes the camera off the cameraman. Yeah, and then she points it at him, and he's there, and he's waving, and she says, "Oh, he looks like Graham Gooch." Now, Graham Gooch was and very, very, very UK centric. Graham Gooch was the captain of the English and Welsh, I should say, cricket team at the time. So nobody else.
Yeah, nobody's going to get that. Yeah.
Except in India, Australia, and New Zealand and South Africa would get that, or the West Indies would get that reference. Yeah. So there is that, and then they take the camera and they go inside the where they got all their videos and cameras, and like almost like the nerve center, and there's no lighting, and the camera's moving around. So you're thinking, this is the BBC, everything should be really polished, but it's got that sort of cinema verite kind of feel. It's got that very, very real feel. Yeah,
it's very real. But you have to have that. You have to be willing to make something a little ugly and a little imperfect for that to work, because that's what it would be like.
And that's what it would be like. And that's the moment where it kind of goes, there's and starts reeling everybody in with it. Yeah. And
to your point, the when they also established like the heat signature thermal camera thing, and when it finally happens, I mean, everybody, all of us are like, like we're just trying to find, because you're going to see it, but I don't think you ever do. I think that was the brilliance. They don't, like, in that you totally think they're going to have something in the background. You'll see something. Nope. And that's
with the heat signatures.
And it just exactly. So it tightens the screw just a little bit more. You're like, son of a it's brilliant in its control and restraint. That's why it's brilliant.
You just see Peisters where the cameraman, where they're in the daughter's rooms, and then when they're walking out of there, and the camera pans over, and you see him like, and then the camera pans back, and he's gone.
Yes.
And there's another scene like later on when all hell breaks loose. You kind of see him under the stairs in the glory hole.
Yeah.
And it's fun saying glory hole all the time.
I will say, in the United States, that means a whole different thing.
We know.
So,
it's come to mean other things here as well, and I think there are a few moments where they keep referring to the glory hole, and you just like
a lot.
Yeah,
come on, guys.
Let's go into the glory hole. No, let's not.
No.
But you see him in there, very just everything is very subliminal, and I like that. And apparently, I missed that. I read that you can where she's picking up the papers in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Apparently, you can see him standing outside.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that.
No,
I mean, it is.
That one.
I think, you when you go back through, that's the joy of having, is that now you can go click, 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 and
when I saw him in the studio, I actually had goosebumps, because it was like, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I think too that to your point about having the Blu-ray or the DVD. So when they made this, though, they had no idea, right, that this would ever get aired more than the one time. So the fact that they were willing to do those types of things, knowing that people may not ever notice that stuff, but it adds to the experience.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And like Friedkin did the same with The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And, there are so many more shots in there when you sort of watch it over, depending on which director's cut Friedkin felt like releasing that week. But you look at all the sort of, you look at like all the different sort of those moments where you see the little flashes, and then you get more, and you realize actually part of the reason why that film is just abjectly terrifying is it builds. It builds and builds and cranks it up and cranks it up and cranks it, and before you know it, you're terrified, but you're not really seeing anything that is just outrightly gory, outrightly, there's
Yeah.
no screaming, but it's slowly just turning that screw.
And it's the quiet moment. See, I think that's modern horror. And I'm gonna pull on my old man britches, get off my lawn. I want to say the problem with a lot of modern horror, I don't actually, I'm not one of these people who hates all jump scares, but I'm friggin' like, if I ever make something again, my goal is no jump scare. And there's a difference, by the way, between a shocking moment and a jump scare.
Yeah.
All today. Now, I haven't seen Exorcist, but since you brought up The Exorcist, one of the greatest movies, period, but horror movie, any movie, period, in my opinion. But the new one that just came out, Exorcist Believer, let's just say I've been listening to a few reviews. I'm not rushing out. So there's that. But one of the big gripes with it seems to be that it's this over-reliance on a physiological reaction. It's the, it's like, okay, yeah, you're going to make people jump because you slammed somebody into a glass out of nowhere, or you made the music cue go up, volume by 10.
You won't be thinking about it afterwards.
But yes, it's like that's different than Leatherface showing up with a hammer and slamming him in the head and then shutting that's not a jump scare. That's shock. That's like, holy God, what that's
with
different.
the shears cutting off someone's head in Exorcist 3.
That moment, Exorcist, in my opinion,
peeing your pants moment.
That's not a jump scare. That's not that transcends jump scare, and it's the greatest one in cinematic history. Is that hallway scene in Exorcist 3?
But then I think the jump scare has become sort of, it's almost like, and don't get me wrong, I like a good jump scare, but once it's been done once, twice,
15,000 times.
How many times can a cat jump out of a cupboard?
What else?
The thing about the jump scare is it's really more of a it's a quick scare for a haunted house. If you're going through a haunted attraction, maximum 5 minutes. Usually it's more like 2 to 3. And so the jump scare is meant to heighten the physical experience of going through that haunted house, which may or may not have a story. Sometimes they don't. But if you're putting that in your film and that's all there is, then there's no substance. It's just relying on a
physiological reaction. Yeah, that's it. And
it's kind of a release. You have the tension building, and then you have the jump scare, and then it releases something, and then you kind of have to build that up again. Well, in Ghostwatch, it just builds.
Yeah, Hitchcock talks about that all the time in terms of, you have to have a release for the audience, because if you keep the tension all the way through, you just exhaust the audience. They just become exhausted with it. So it has to have that moment of release. But I think now what has happened is, and again, I'm back in my day, kid.
I can say that.
Yeah, they sort of the jump scare is the only release. It's the valve that goes, and then it's done. And then you got to build back, and it's done. But whereas the shocking moment, you don't really get a release in this. And I think that is the one thing that actually is probably the most traumatic thing about it, is there isn't a resolution to it. There is
no. I think a little bit about the release in this is when you get to the point where stuff happens, and then they lose the signal, and then they come back and they see this normal, and I did for air quotes, scene where they're in the living room where they're kind of playing and all that, and Michael Parkinson, oh look, everything is back to normal again, until the doctor says, look at the picture, and that's when you think, wait a minute. And that's because you kind of have a little bit of release there. You think, okay, everything is fun, and then no, it's not.
But that is a decided difference. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah.
But that's a total difference than a jump scare, right? I mean, that's just,
you kind of.
You have a moment to breathe. It gives you a moment to breathe. And really, if you think about it, the first hour of this thing, you have it's a build, but it's so subtle, and it's not the tension is so the real tension is in that last 20 minutes. I mean, that's when it goes off the rails.
Let's see, I wrote that down. Yeah. It's like everybody's quite cheerful. I like when you see Craig Charles outside, they're showing off the playground, and he's funny, and he's making jokes, and he's laughing and trying to be in the shot all the time. So everything is kind of like trying to be cheerful and trying to make something, because they think that nothing's going to happen here anyway. Sure. So we have to have fun with it. And then
But that makes but that's what makes the horror. Yeah, but that's what makes the horror work so well, right?
Yeah,
it's when you mix that humorous element coming naturally from these characters, and him especially, right? Because he's everybody, even a schlub like me from the States knew about Red Dwarf, so he's the one guy I really recognized, but it made sense.
It's a great show.
You would have somebody there who's like that, who's a known personality as comic relief to kind of balance things out. Like that seems very like an intentional thing.
The only wrong thing about him in this movie is he's walking around in a Chicago Bears NFL jacket. No.
I mean,
no.
There is this sort of and that is that, again, it's our listeners there, so nothing really bad is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's the comic relief.
Safe, and then you think, oh dear, something's not right.
Yeah.
Can we get the cheeky chappy back in? And it's like, and then it keeps building and it's building, and then they're talking about pipes. And what I love about this as well, it's got the clear inspiration from the Enfield haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, the Enfield haunting is a really, really interesting case in of itself.
Yeah.
And that it clearly draws its inspiration from that. Now, and unless you were into the paranormal and those kind of things, see, this is pre-internet, so nobody would have really known of that. So if you look at like that beginning, that opening footage, that they show of the girl's bedroom. That in itself was just like mind blowing the first time that was shown, because you'd never seen anything. There was no Most Haunted, there was no Ghost Adventures, there was no Zach Baggins, there was no Derek Acora or any of these guys, about none of that. And then you were seeing that, and they are very British, they are very UK. It's everybody is deathly pale in this, and it's not because they're dead or they're ghosts. It's just because nobody has seen the sun. We're not allowed to take our jackets off until we're 15.
Got it. Makes sense.
It is that sort of like and with the phone in, where people are phoning in, and the comments and the conversation, it's very UK. It is very UK. So everybody's.
And by the way, that was the real number.
Yeah. Yeah. So people were phoning in.
Yeah.
People were phoning in and you almost then get this kind of mass hysteria that starts building with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you got it all the way through. You question for the first 20 minutes, you're questioning whether it's real. And then bing, you think, oh my God, this is really happening. And then you get you kind of click, don't you, after a certain point. But there is a good proportion of this. You sat there going, oh my God. Oh my God, ghosts are real. Oh my
the
God.
Brilliance of it is like what Joel alluded to when he talked about it. It draws the viewer in because it's spreading out into people's living rooms, and the dogs are reacting, and they hears sounds that makes people sitting in the living room watching this thinking, "What was that?
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute."
Mm-hmm.
What? So that's the brilliance of it too.
It makes you, I think, if you were saying you were just casually watching it and not paying attention, and then you start to notice, oh, well, people are calling in and they're saying they're seeing these things in the footage. Then you start paying closer attention, and then people start. It escalates to call saying, "This is not okay. What you're doing, you should stop." And then it really, it's so effective at ramping up that anxiety. And I can only imagine what it would have been like to watch this as a kid. Like I think sometimes when I am watching it, I like to just think, how would I feel? Because that would be insane. I would have been so traumatized. Like I'm creeped out at 43. I was like in my kitchen last night at the sink, and I could see my own reflection, and the kitchen's all decorated for Halloween. So there's this awesome orange spooky glow, but the window panes double. So it makes this weird double reflection. And I was just like, I don't want to look in the window right now. I'm like kind of afraid of what I'm going to see.
There is no way on earth they could make this now. No way. That is no.
Oh no! I'm going to push back, Huw. I'm going to push back and say this: yes, they could, if they're willing to deal with the consequences. They absolutely could.
Well,
yeah.
There is something similar that came out a few years back that is definitely inspired by an homage to this, but it's not a call-in show, but it's the WNUF Halloween special where they do this sort of, the idea is that it's a tape that someone taped the news when they were going to a haunted house, and then there's commercials in it, and it tries to build this realistic event that happened back in the 80s where like a newscaster's trip to a haunted house with some local psychics goes horribly wrong. And I don't know if any of you have seen that movie.
Yep.
It pairs really well with this, I think. But it's definitely it's like somebody trying to do their 80s nostalgia version of Ghostwatch, I feel like.
It's a fun watch.
I interrupted you, Hugh. Go ahead, finish your point.
It's like sort of, I mean, the one thing that this had the total surprise of nobody having any kind of idea that is happening. There was nothing on. There was no internet. There was nothing in the press. This was totally secret.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. So when you say it could be, you're basically saying because of the world we live in with the media being what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that somebody couldn't do this in a like literal creative sense. Although I would even say I highly doubt the BBC or any other corporation at this point would have the balls to pull this off. Again. But technically somebody, I think the key would be you could pull this off, but here's what it would require: you creating something so cinema verite, so realistic, and you'd have to be willing to do something like hypothetically copy it onto like DVDs and VHS tapes and randomly putting them all over, like in thrift stores, just randomly. I'm being serious, like mailing them to people. Doing like, be willing to take that on as like some weird like performance art type of project. Where you want to make something where people are like, "What the actual hell am I?"
Well, they did that originally with the WNUF Halloween special. They just dropped tapes places for people.
I love that. I love that so much.
And honestly, I love it. It's a really fun. It's a huge dose of nostalgia. But they made one mistake that I have take issue with without spoiling the plot. There's fast forwarding. In the movie, and I don't understand why they made that choice, because they had all these great commercials, and yes, you would see the commercials more than once because that's how it would happen if you had put your VCR on a timer and you were going to tape this show. So who's fast forwarding? Like it's a reality.
And you have to think about that, right? You'd have to, like, for instance, just hypothetical, if you wanted to do one, if say it's going to be set in 2003. I get like a Canon XL1 and shoot it on that. B, the only title that would be in this whole thing at the very beginning would be like one of those maybe either new. I think they did this with the McPherson tape where it's almost like it's like file footage or something. And and I would find one that was exact, and you'd want to get the font right. You'd want to get everything would have to be.
You have the little counter up in the.
Yes, you'd have to have all, but you have to be careful because there's little things that would give it away. Then you'd also, in my opinion, you'd want to make at least a second or third generation copy of your master, and that's what you send out to people. And if you're careful, I believe you could 100% get away with that,
and also end up in court.
Oh, what? Hey, get end up in court for what? If I made a movie and I put it out if I donated the tape to Goodwills and thrift stores, what am I doing? I'm not doing. I wouldn't. I mean, obviously, you don't want to do something. I mean, I guess if you wanted to like go really dark with it, make it seem like it's a snuff film. But
Deodato went to court.
When I was Deodato ended up in court because
he had to bring the actors
I'm saying
in
something
to
more like
prove they're
this.
alive.
Something more like a ghost story or something supernaturally based. I just think there's something so fun and genius about like getting like people thinking, God, could this be real? And I think that's the only way today. Here's the key. You know what the hard part of it is? The reason why I think most people wouldn't have the gumption to do it, it requires you to put your ego and not have it say so-and-so movie or I directed that. You couldn't tell anybody about it. It would just, you'd have to be like pull a full-on Andy Kaufman and be willing to go all out with your movie. That's what you have to do. And I think you could do it, but it would take a special kind of crazy to pull it off.
You could also do it completely with one camera. Have like a house or an apartment with an open space, or like you have living room, kitchen in the same, and then like a one room. You have a camera up in the corner that covers everything, and just let that run. and like things happen in front of it.
Yep.
So like an experimental thing.
And
So,
if and here's the key: if you put enough copies of it out there,
Yeah.
this is where the internet would do the work for you, because eventually somebody would see it and be like, "What the hell?" And they would they'd throw up some kind of like screen
you have
capture
to have
of it,
patience.
yeah. You have to have it might take years. It might take years, but
Yeah.
eventually, I mean, they're
someone will
right.
say,
Payoff.
"What's
What a
this?"
payoff.
Oh, and the key, but here's the key: once it gets revealed that people are like talking about it, you'd have to have. This is where ego would trip somebody up. You have to be like, not saying a word, not saying a word.
Nope. I
10
mean,
years later, you're like,
By the way,
I did good.
if I decide to do this now, I realize I've totally screwed it up by talking about it on a friggin' podcast.
"Oops."
there is a moment afterwards. There's a great program called it used to be, and there was a program called Points of View, and essentially it was on the BBC, and it still kind of runs today, but in a very, very different format, because obviously the BBC is paid for by TV license. So in the UK, you have to have you have to pay for your TV license, TV and radio license, which pays for the BBC, right? And there's a program on there which allows people to write in and complain about what they've watched.
Of course.
And some of them are just absolute. It's genius. It is just the things people will write in and complain about, or the things that people will like phone in and leave messages. It's sort of they've kind of moved it around and play, but so people leave messages. So like the great one, and it's plays every Sunday now. But the latest ones that people complain about was the money that the BBC are spending on the lighting and their videos. They do not need to be spending this extravagant amount. Nobody needs to have that amount of shiny shoes. It's this kind and some of them are, you know, I really don't think that we are spending enough time not talking about Nicaragua. I'm really interested in Nicaragua. Where is my license fee going? I want to know about this. It's that kind of stuff. You've got far too much time on your hands. But the one of the quotes from and it's famously on there was from Points of View, and Points of View used to be the woman who was the TV presenter for that. My wife has a pathological hatred for her because she knew when Points of View came on, it was time for bed when she was a child, and that was it. The weekend was over, and she had school on Monday. And her name was Esther Ranson. But the one quote on there was from Points of View and it was a guy who wrote in. He said, "Okay, I'm not ashamed to admit it. Ghostwatch totally fooled me and scared me half to death." And that pretty much was the sentiment echoed throughout Britain, you know. And it's really interesting how it's this program sort of brought everyone together in this sort of collective trauma of trying to process what they had just watched. It's just, we kind of forget. It's kind of, you know, people forget about it and it comes back and it pops up, and you know, we're talking about it now, but people really don't get the impact this program had at its time. When it came out at this time, when, you know, nobody realizes that it was that sort of, what am I seeing? My God, I can't believe this is happening. You know, it's a wonderful moment in TV history.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is
today
I am thankful that I have seen it. I'm very thankful. Yes. I am very happy I own it. I will absolutely watch this again. I think this would be a fun every Halloween kind of movie too. Like just, you know, revisiting it. It's just, even if you get really used to it, just having it in the background, there's just something about it. I loved it. I'm assuming everyone here equally, obviously loves this movie. Yes. And so I will say before we
keep talking. Oh. I forgot my list. I'll go get it.
Are we going to do a movie pick? Do you want to do the movie pick then?
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if you should just play Ghostwatch in the background. It might be dangerous.
And just in general? Yeah, probably.
Something might get through.
Yeah. And by the way, when they showed Pipes in one of the, I think it was the one where they pan the kid's room and then go back and he's missing. Was it like a skull looking head? Like, didn't it look?
Basically it is the actor. Oh God, what's the actor's name? I've written it down. The actor's name was Keith Ferrari was the guy who played it. And essentially it's just the eye, the makeup has been provided, so it looks like the eyes have been gouged out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's a
gotcha.
face, and this scar. There's a huge scar that runs like down the side
Okay.
from his eye there, but the eyes are actually missing.
Yes.
I'm back.
Okay. Well, you never left, as far as we're concerned. You've been frozen in the exact same place for the last 5 minutes.
You kidding?
No, it's you looking down.
No, he was missing, and then he just suddenly
then-
reappeared.
Oh man,
which
I was
is
looking at.
better.
Oh really? I didn't see. Okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Actually. It looked to me
That
like
would
he was
actually be
just.
cool.
I guess
Almost like
I
an
was,
I Dream Genie moment.
I,
I was never gone.
well, on my, I could have sworn on my end he never disappeared. That's what I'm looking at.
I actually added 4 more TV movies to the list.
Okay, so here's the deal. Do you want to keep with the pattern? We'll let our guest pick the number, and then it's up to you, Huw, if you want to join us again, if you can. I understand
For
you
the
got,
movie you picked.
but for the
Okay.
movie you picked. So if
You
it's
either
sucked, it's
celebrate
your fault, Huw.
Yeah, exactly.
Just-
The pressure's on.
no, totally.
Let's see. The ones that are taken, we choose between 1 and 11, and the ones that are gone are 2, 5, and 11.
Well, let's go with 6 then.
All
Okay.
right.
I'm gonna type it down here so I don't forget.
Okay, it's something from 1973 called A Cold Night's Death.
Ooh, interesting.
70, she said 73.
1973. Yep. A Cold Night's Death.
Okay, that's good because my theory, Huw, at this point is that the only TV movies that I consistently like are the ones from like the early 70s. Like that seems to be not all.
I think and I think you like some from the 80s.
Have I though? I mean, I like to
You like,
help.
one from the 90s.
I mean,
That's
he's got a
true.
great
Okay.
cast.
Oh, don't
Don't
look
tell-
anything up.
Yeah, don't look anything up. You're,
All right, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Let me phrase. You can do whatever you want, Huw.
Well,
I say
we have rules.
Yeah, we try to go and do it as cold as possible. No pun intended.
Okay.
Considering the
I
title.
just got rid of it, but yeah,
Okay.
I'm in.
Okay,
I'm there.
cool.
I
Great.
just realized I've stuck my thumbs up, and it just looks because of the way the green.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
this is-
wow, that's
This is
terrifying.
weird. Yeah, where'd your thumbs go? Yeah. All right. Well, then, on that note, Huw, thank you, good sir, for being here. Obviously,
Oh,
I'm
thank
glad
you.
that you'll join us for the next one. Where can everyone find you?
I mean, they can find me at. They can find the show on SoundCloud, on Apple Podcasts. We've had a bit of a revamp on the YouTube channel, so you can come look at some of our short movies that are on there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, which formerly known as Twitter, which still feels really, really creepy saying I'm on X. It's not like
What kind of site's that?
yeah, it's not quite. It's a couple. It's about 3 rungs below OnlyFans.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, you can find me on there. Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes,
I love this show, and it's one of my favorites, and it's always great to sort of.
Well, I appreciate that. I know these guys do as well. And I will say, because you didn't say it technically, Hugh's show is called The Undead Wookiee. I know anyone watching this has seen it behind you the whole time, but just in case somebody who's
And
listening, I
do
want to make sure they
mention
know.
it every
Yes, you do. But I want to make sure. Sure anybody new listening who doesn't know. Allyson,
Yes.
where can they find you?
You can find me here. You can also find old episodes of my other podcast, the Haunted Davenport podcast, where we actually did an episode on Ghostwatch. It was one of our first episodes, and it's actually been our most downloaded episode ever. I don't know if that's good or bad,
Oh, I
but
think that's good.
it was a fun episode that we had a great time doing it, and we went in depth with it, and we laughed way too much about the glory hole. So be warned, if you check that out, you can find
You're not
that over
alone.
at the haunteddavenport.com, along with other retro horror television and sci-fi TV. And then also
Courage.
we over several years we posted Halloween playlists that are you can find on the Haunted Davenport website under KRIP, so you can listen to that.
Very
if
cool.
you're
Yeah, it's good
in the
stuff.
mood.
You should
They
absolutely
should
check it out.
definitely watch that or
Yeah,
listen to that.
it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Peter,
Yeah.
where can they find you?
Am I moving?
Nope, you're like this.
See, I don't know if you're shitting with me anymore.
No, I'm not.
No,
you're
you're frozen.
For me, you're frozen.
You look
Your voice
unsure.
isn't, so don't worry about it. Just talk.
Okay. They can find me here on Terror on the Tube, or they can go to Retro Movie Geek, the child care center.
Yes.
Jump scare. That was a jump scare, Peter.
Or they can go to Forgotten Flicks, our old stuff, or they can go to, oh, hang on, that way. The Undead Wookiee, to hear me and Huw talk about weird and scary movies.
I think the funnest part is you took the effort to try to figure out which way to point at Huw, and it never showed up. There it is. Okay. Yeah, we got you. Okay, good.
I'm not frozen. No, so they can go there.
Now you are.
I pop up. Oh, son of a bitch. I pop up there too. So,
all right. Well, obviously, I can be found here, Retro Movie Geek. This is the tail end of Spooky Flicks Fest. We have our last episode coming out tomorrow. That'll be we're going to cover The Ring with Nathan Toll. He joined us for that one, and you have to hear whether or not that movie held up for us in the same way that Ghostwatch does. I won't say whether it did or not for everyone, but probably not. For everyone. And I will also say that as of today, as you're hearing this and or watching it, we had an episode drop on Mom and Pop Video Shop, and we will have one tomorrow as well. We did like a double feature reaction video to two separate short horror films. Well, one's more of like a horror comedy that involves somebody with receding. No, we did. Oh no, we recorded one about that, but I decided. We're too. Oh no! We did. It was my first time watching. I had no idea what it was. Tyson even said, he goes, "We could do this, but I have a feeling you are not going to want to put this on the channel." He was correct. I'm not there yet. And I was like, "Hey, we're a new channel. We're not doing that right out the gate." Although I guess it would set the mood. But yeah. So check that out. Check out Mom and Pop Video Shop and Jay the Dead's new horror movies, where we've covered all of the Saw movies we did throughout. I think. Did the Saw X drop yet? I don't. Yeah, as of today, as of the
30th. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, as we record this, it definitely has. Did it actually, Peter? Has it dropped yet? Did you say it did? One of you guys?
I don't know. Well, I don't know, but when people listen to this or watch this, it has.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. So yeah. So Saw X, the review that was. I will say, having sat through all of the Saw movies, Saw X was a pleasant surprise compared to the last couple. Because wow, did I not like Spiral, man? I had an attitude problem during that review. Yikes. But yeah, so check all that out. And I guess then before we sail off into the sunset. Oops, I gotta break. I have like too many things I'm trying to move around here. All right. Until next time, remember, when it's late at night and you can't sleep, you might find yourself flipping through the channels. And if you do, beware, because you never know when you just might stumble across terror on the tube.